happening, fellow collectors, fellow subscribers, fellow hunters? Mike the Hunter here, just kicking it back in the nerd cave. Today we're sporting the charcoal gray Toy Hunter shirt. Hope you guys like it. If you haven't, go check out the Mike the Hunter official Teespring store and get yourself a Mike the Hunter shirt, man. Rep your favorite hobby, toy hunting, and let the people know you hunt toys, man. Don't be afraid to show it. Today's video is going to be how I started collecting action figures. This story goes way back. So let's start from day one. When I was about, I would say, 4 years old, I was watching a lot of Star Wars movies. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was my favorite, believe it or not. It was strictly my favorite, as a child because I loved Darth Maul. You know how you can remember like vivid images from when you were 4 years old? Yeah, well, I remember I had a Star Wars room with a little twin-size bed in the corner with a Darth Maul pillow. I had a couple lightsabers, and I had a lot of the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars Jedi figures. You remember the ones that came with like a little chip code on the bottom, had like a picture of them? Very, very vivid memory of those action figures, but I would say those were the first line of action figures that I ever got my hands on collecting, and that's when I was like 4 years old. So I guess you could say I started collecting when I was 4 years old. Fast forward into the years where I get into all sorts of toys. One toy line that I really loved collecting when I was about like 6 years old to 8 years old, I loved Rescue Heroes. If you guys don't remember seeing Rescue Heroes, I wouldn't blame you. A lot of people don't really remember what they were. One thing that I always liked in collecting things or figures is there's always a different version, a different guy, a different girl, a different costume. I always had a thing for costumes. So with the Rescue Heroes, they had, firemen, they had police officers, they had construction workers, they had doctors. One of my favorites was a ranger. His name was Marshall. I just really loved him, and I had like maybe 15 of them or so, 15 or 20 Rescue Heroes. I had the big old rescue car, the big old squad car that they came with. I had the entire Rescue Hero headquarters. That was the second line I got into collecting. I remember when Star Wars Episode 3 dropped. One of the best Star Wars movies ever. Not the best, but one of the best. One of my favorites. Back in 2004, I believe it was when it came out, Burger King released these little mini stubby Star Wars figures, and they had every single character, man. They had C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Maul, Anakin Skywalker, every single character, man. Almost every single character. I don't think they had Darth Vader though. If they did, Darth Vader was the one that was impossible to get. So each and every single day I would have my mom take me to Burger King. I would just eat Burger King every single day. I didn't care. I had to get a Burger King toy meal. That was my next awesome collection that I got into. All the way up until I was 12, I would say. I played with toys. I would always do Transformers, Star Wars figures. Believe it or not, I was never really into having superhero toys. Believe it or not, superhero toys, I didn't really have that many. Star Wars was always my deal. I always loved Star Wars figures. 13 years old, I kind of just put the toys down, and that's when I started getting into, the older things. Girls, being outside a lot, riding bikes. So what made me kind of put down toys, I remember this specific day. I was chilling outside with my friends, kicking it back. These little 6th graders out on the streets of Ontario. These little hood rat kids just hanging out, sipping on some Monster energy drinks like it was a cool thing to do. We were all chilling on our bikes like we were the Stranger Things kids, and this one dude rolls up on this BMX bike and does a stoppie, starts doing bunny hops, insane bike tricks, and I'm like, whoa, dude, how did you do that? And ever since that day, about 4 or 5 years went by, I was a BMXer, man. All of middle school, I did nothing but ride bikes. I got into 180s, I started doing wall rides. Riding bikes was my thing. I never would even think about toys. I just never did. I maybe kept a few action figures tucked away in my drawer from when I was a kid, and I believe it was a little Stormtrooper 3 3/4 inch figure. I also saved a Halloween Michael Myers figure that I've had since I was about 9 years old. So I went through middle school and half of high school without collecting. Wrestling was my sport in high school. Wrestling just really taught me to work with mental toughness, man. It turned me into a gym rat. Working out was my obsession. I was in incredible shape. Fun to me and hobbies were just working out. That's all I can say. After wrestling, I got into kickboxing my junior year of high school. So this is starting to lead toward when I got back into action figures. Here we go. As a Batman fan and Batman doing his martial arts and all that, man, kickboxing was my thing. I was a single junior in high school, getting good grades, A's and B's, man. I had very little friends at that time. My social circle was very small, so I had a lot of me time. Every day after school, I would ride straight back to my house on my mountain bike. I'd get home, rest for like, 10, 15 minutes, make a smoothie, get all juiced up for kickboxing. I would ride my mountain bike to kickboxing. I would train little younglings with kickboxing with the pads, as well as adults. And my reward for that was my kickboxing membership. So I would have one class where I would teach people, and then the next class I actually got to work out. So one day before going into kickboxing, my mom takes me into this Salvation Army thrift store right across the street from my kickboxing class. She wanted to go in and, look at a couple things. My mom's a shopaholic, and she was back at the time too. So she wanted to take me with her to go shopping, maybe buy me something, a shirt, whatever. So one day we walk in and I notice there's this little corner shop in the corner of the store. It's like a separate little vendor. And I saw the coolest thing, man, that just, it brought me back to like a little kid right then and there. The guy who owned the little corner store, he's kind of like a nerd. He knew all about the toys there. He knew all about the characters. I saw a giant castle diorama with a bunch of the 3 3/4 inch movie Avengers figures, all posed in their fighting positions. I looked at it, I thought it was the coolest thing. I said, dude, these figures look exactly like the movie. I didn't know much about paint apps and all that on action figures and how good they were compared to other action figures. I saw these 3 3/4 inch figures and thought they were the most incredible thing that I've ever seen. I looked at Thor's face and was like, oh my gosh, that's Hemsworth. That looks like Hemsworth. Oh, this Iron Man figure looks so real. Look at its tiny little size, and it just looks so real. It looks just like the movie. I wanted them. I wanted to take them. I didn't have a job at the time, so I asked my mom. I said, Mom, can you buy me these? She looked at me and she laughed. She's like, hey, you want these little toys? You want these little monitos? Yeah, look at them, Mom. They're like movie quality. Dad would love these. These things are awesome. And she bought them all for $10, I think. Not only did I notice those Avengers, but at the top of the diorama, I noticed this red ninja-like Deathstroke look-alike character at the top, kind of posed with a sword. I said, hey, who is that guy? Is that like a Deathstroke type of character? He looked at me, he said, no, man, that's Deadpool. I said, Deadpool? In my head, I'm like, what is a Deadpool? I did not know who Deadpool was. He goes, yeah, Deadpool, man, he's the merc with the mouth. He's awesome. I said, how much is that one, dude? He says, oh, he's not for sale. It was a 3 3/4 inch Deadpool figure that I now have, which is very awesome. He said, no, man, it's not for sale. Sorry, bro. That's like my prized possession. That Deadpool ain't going nowhere. I said, oh, man, well, he looks awesome, dude. And I started asking him questions about the store. He said, yeah, man, we get new stuff every week. We get it from a warehouse, a lot of different collectibles, a lot of Marvel Legends, Marvel Universe figures. We get a lot of Star Wars. So I said, okay, man, I'm going to come back to this place and check what other stuff they get in. It was that day that my mom took me into that thrift store that I got the Fig Bug Bite. I brought those figures home with me that night and I played with them. I posed them. I put them next to my PS3. I'm just looking at them all set up, after posing them, and I just kind of thought to myself, I said, dude, I want more. So I went back the very next day and I think I bought a couple more Marvel Universe figures. I got whatever 3 3/4 inch figure I saw there because they were selling them for cheap. Marvel Universe figures nowadays are like, what, 12, 13 bucks. This dude was selling them for like $3 a piece. So every day before kickboxing, I would go to that thrift shop with some allowance money and buy me some action figures, man. I would throw them in my backpack, go to kickboxing. As I would be waiting for kickboxing to start, I would unzip my backpack, kind of peek in there a little bit and be like, oh dude, I can't wait to play with these tonight. So this is where I started getting deep into comic book action figures. I started looking up these action figures online to see, if there were more of them, how many other characters did they have of them? Are there hundreds? Are there only like a couple of them? I found out that there is just an endless amount of Marvel Universe figures online. I started seeing all of these characters that I didn't have a clue, who they were, but I wanted them. I didn't read that many comics as a kid, so I had a lot to learn about superheroes and their origins. So I got like a lot of the X-Men characters and a lot of the Avengers characters in the 3 3/4 inch line. I got a lot of random G.I. Joe figures. So I started just getting more and more toys day by day, man, and I would put them up in my closet because if I had a friend come over, I didn't want him to see it. I put it away. I put it up in the closet. Had maybe like 2 or 3 displayed on my desk, but that was about it. So let's go ahead and fast forward to graduating the 11th grade, going into summertime. It was the summertime right before senior year of high school, and I got my very first job. I got my job at Little Caesars Pizza. I was in the midst of getting my license, so I didn't have a car yet. No car payments, no insurance, nothing. I just had these checks coming in. So you know what I started spending that money on. I started going on eBay and started buying all of these Marvel Universe figures, man. And by the end of that summer, I had an entire shelf of Marvel Universe figures. And it was around this time where I really just stopped caring about my friends knowing about it. They knew, man, and I said, it is what it is. I like collecting figures, I think it's a pretty cool hobby. And it turns out they thought it was pretty cool too. Of course, I was the nerd of the group, but they still digged it. My friends sometimes, he'd hang out with me and he'd start playing with them and whatnot. So all of my senior year, I strictly collected Marvel Universe figures. I loved Marvel Universe figures, man. Those were my getaway. Those were my budget, of course. I could only really afford Marvel Universe figures. At the time, they were maybe about, $12, $13 at Toys R Us. Finally got my first car, which was a Chevy Blazer 1998, I believe. And when I had some extra money, I would drive my way down to Toys R Us and check out what Marvel Universe figures they had. I couldn't buy as many as I used to because I had to pay for my car, of course. I had to pay for the insurance on it. So I bought maybe 1 or 2 every check. So collecting really slowed down. Marvel Universe figures were my primary collection until one day Captain America, the Winter Soldier, comes out in theaters. When I saw him in Avengers, the first movie, of course I didn't really care for him, dude. Did you see the suit he was wearing? That suit just made me think he was like the nerd of the Avengers. The straight-laced, boring guy. When I saw the stealth suit on him, I thought it looked incredible. I loved the way it looked. It had a serious dark tone to it. He looked a lot more intimidating. And after seeing that movie, Captain America was my official top favorite superhero. So having so much love for Captain America, I didn't only want a Marvel Universe figure of him. I wanted the movie figure of Captain America in the stealth suit. So I went to Target and I saw that they had the Winter Soldier figures out. And my very first Marvel Legend in package was the stealth suit Captain America from the Winter Soldier line. I brought this figure home, I opened it up, and started posing it, and I thought, whoa, dude, okay, this is articulation on steroids. I was used to, Marvel Universe figures having, single joints, not really doing much, not really having ab crunches and all that crazy stuff, ankle pivot, head joints going up and down. Probably one of the best articulated figures that I've ever seen in a Marvel Legends line. So I was lucky to have him as my first figure because I really got a good taste of my first Marvel Legend. And I thought to myself, oh man, I need more of these. I started buying more and more and more Marvel Legends. Not as crazy as I did with Marvel Universe figures. I just bought some, here and there. What really kickstarted me on collecting Marvel Legends is getting into toy photography. I discovered articulated comic book art, I started noticing that, like, wow, there's a whole community of these people that collect these Marvel Legends and take phenomenal pictures of them. They bring these action figures to life, and it's just a really insane hobby that I want to be a part of. So I started my first Marvel Legend line, which was the Red Onslaught wave. The Taskmaster, and I went to town, man. I started taking pictures of all my toys, all my Marvel Legends that I had owned, went outside, started taking pictures of them, and I created my very first toy photography page. More lines of figures came out, so I became a Marvel Legends collector. My Marvel Legends will always be my prized collection, man. Each and every single one of those figures has a memory, and these are figures that I get to hold on to as trophies, as memories. So I'll always keep them, man, forever and ever. I will always cherish my Legends. I don't care how old I get. These Legends ain't going anywhere, man. I will never sell them. I will never let anyone make me sell them. Mary, I'm a toy collector, man. It's what I do. It's what I love to do. So there you have it, folks. That's going to be the end of this story time. It's a pretty long one, man. I thank you so much for listening in on it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your figures, enjoy your families, and as always, good hunting. Peace!